Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Talking Preps. I'm Blair Cartwright. Please be joined by Trent Loyd, the head boys basketball coach at Bentonville West. Trent, thanks so much for joining us. How are you?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Doing good. Just enjoying summer. Gearing up for another school year. It's already here, but we're excited to get going.
No doubt. I mean, like, where did it go? The summer, it seems like everybody just got out of school. Now, suddenly, everybody's going back.
Oh, that's summer. You talk about June with all the team camps, July, you kind of settle in, but all the kids are going AAU every weekend. And so, summer just, it's a lot more hectic than people think it is. But, school time in August, kind of get back to a routine. I'm excited for that.
I was going to say, okay, so as a boys basketball coach, what is your summer like? You mentioned the team camps. Does that take up pretty much the majority of June?
Yeah, June's fun. June's a fun month to, you're kind of figuring out, if you have roster turnover like we did this year, you're kind of figuring out what's your identity? What do you look like? You're kind of practicing, getting ready for it. But, we attack team camps a lot different than we attack the regular season. And so there's a ton of freedom. We're trying to see what we can and can't do, but we're practicing while we're getting ready for that. And, you throw in the AAA days that they allow you to play and you start doing some traveling, you get on the bus with the guys. There's some hotel stays where you get some camaraderie stuff, but June's a really fun month for a basketball coach.
And then July comes and everybody kind of scatters and goes their own way. Do you kind of lose some of that chemistry and bonding that you got in June, or does that carry over?
We do, and we've been doing this now for a while, but we just go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So we know we've got a lot of guys taking off Thursday afternoon to go to AAU. So we give them off Friday, and then we give them off Monday as well, knowing that they're, a lot of them are traveling late Sunday, getting back in. So, the 3 days we hit the weight room hard in July, do some light skill work, but we always say July is about their AAU, and we just want to make sure we're staying in the weight room. We contact all their AAU coaches and just let them know, like, hey, if you need us to work on anything when they're with us to get them ready for you, that's what we're here for as well. So it's all about a lot of people working together to give this student athlete, the best experience they can and also like help them reach their goals. So, the more people in the boat row in the same direction, the faster we'll get there. I'm a big believer in that. And so, I think communication in July is key as well to make sure, like you're talking about, you build in June, but we still need to make sure that we're keeping those relationships and that trust and that camaraderie in July going. And we kind of live with that in the weight room in July.
Now, what happens when school starts? Do you all are you all practicing daily? Because I'm sure you've got some guys playing football or other fall sports. How does that work for the basketball team? Because your season does start later in the fall semester.
No, it does. And I think year by year it dictates on what type of team you have. Do you have a lot of guys coming back that know the system, that know the ins and outs of what you're wanting to do? If you do, you may start kind of getting into that, not really, preseason, but kind of install for in season. It may be a little bit later, but if you're young and you're trying to kind of figure it out and see what you can and can't do, figuring out like, okay, this group plays well together, this group doesn't. And so, I think you can start a little bit earlier. We kind of start Septemberish. We give them August where we lift a lot. We start playing. We do some skill work. And then September, we start slowly gearing up for season. And then October is kind of that. October 1 is, all right, fellas, here we go. It's on. So, and they know that. We're pretty upfront what it looks like in the fall with them and kind of break it up into a preseason one, a preseason two. Preseason one's going to look a certain way. Preseason two is going to be a little bit closer to season, and they know when we get the preseason two, then it's on.
How long did it take you to kind of get to come up to with the program that you have now in developing that? I mean, I'm sure that was a process that took a while. How did you come about coming up with that program?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of trial and error, right? Like you figure out, like, gosh, we started, the first day of school with practice, and we wore these dudes down. And by the time we got there, they just almost seemed exhausted and hit a wall, in late October. Or, maybe it's, you're calling your peers and you're talking to your buddies, being like, hey, what are you doing in the off season? What are you doing, in October? What's it look like for you in September? We're all learning from each other. None of us, invented all of this stuff. And so, always looking to learn, always looking to, pick the brain of other people. And we're still trying to do that here. And so, this is going to be a group for us that we probably start a little bit earlier on certain things because we do have a lot of new faces that are going to be playing for us. And so, but they're a fun group, man. They show up every day. They work hard for each other, which is fun. They can push each other, and so we're really excited about the fall because the fall is kind of when you start building what we talked about, those relationships. You build that trust, and then when you start going to play in games, all of that comes from what you're doing, the previous summer and fall, and so we're ready to go to work.
Is that what keeps it fun and refreshing for you? Is the fact that the rosters do change each year, and so there's new people, and it presents new challenges?
It's this profession's all about the relationships, if you ask me. Like
Hmm.
we lose a great senior class of Landon Price, Cooper Moore, Drake Tidwell, Doug Campbell, C.J. Coleman, and those are guys we're going to have relationships with forever. But now we have some younger guys coming up that were with the freshman team, and we get to know them. And the sophomores, they're more comfortable with us, and the juniors, now it's their team, right, as seniors.
Hmm.
And so you get to just build these relationships. You get to watch these young men grow to not just become good basketball players, but good young men and good people. And that's what it's about. And so when it's all said and done, the ball is going to stop bouncing for everybody. We want to win every single game we play. Our goal every year, conference championship, state championship. But at the end of at the end game, what are we here for as well? And that's to let them know that they do have people that they can count on. They do have people that they can trust. And, when they graduate, the relationship's not over by any means. So, I always get excited when we get to this, school gets going again because it's now, you're seeing them daily. You can start building small things on the floor, off the floor, and that are going to lead to big things. And so it's a fun time of year, just to get to where we are right now.
Awesome. So, how did you get started into coaching? Was it your dad a major influence, or how did that come about? Where you decided, I want to be a coach?
Yeah, my dad had a big impact in that. When I was little, I'd hop on the bus with him. He'd check me out early, and we'd hop on the pig trail and come play a Fayetteville or Springdale or Rogers or Bentonville. And I could be in the locker room. I could sit on the end of the bench. I just got to see it all and do it all, and just always thought that this is what I wanted to do. Even though sometimes they'd say, "Hey, are you sure you really want to do this?" Right? Like, a lot of business up here. Hop in the business sector, but it's a relationship business. It's one that I got to see the impact he had on young people. I got to see how when his former players showed up, how excited they would be to see him when they show up to a Van Buren game. And so I've just always wanted that. There's a lot of different ways to look at this profession, and I just really feel blessed to be in the spot I am to work at such a good school district that values that type of stuff as well. From Bentonville School District from the foundation up is all about that stuff and relationships and helping promote and provide the best possible scenario they can for all their students.
So, how did your coaching journey begin?
Yeah, so went to college at University of Arkansas. My first job was either I could be assistant baseball coach at Northside or I could be the junior high basketball coach at Pea Ridge. And Charlie Clark was the head coach at Pea Ridge, and he had my dad's assistant coach, Chris Bryant, who was somebody that I'd looked up to for a long time. Great basketball coach, X's and O's. And so Charlie had played for Coach Bryant, and so that was the connection of me being able to get that Pea Ridge junior high job. And so everyone always thinks, "Oh, I'm sure your dad was involved in your first job and helping out." I'm like, no, he wasn't at all. It was the assistant coach that I had such a good relationship with that I think so much of that helped me get my first job. And Charlie Clark at Pea Ridge, I did junior high there with him for 2 years, and then he got out of it and went into administration, and then I was able to take over for him and be the head coach at Pea Ridge after that. And I learned so much from Charlie. He's such a good players coach. Kids love playing for him. I got to see how to go about that, and I've seen my dad and how he coached. I've been around Coach Bryant for a long time as well, and now I've got to see. I was able to see Charlie Clark and Larry Walker at Pea Ridge do their thing. You're just a sponge when even now you're a sponge. You're just always trying to learn from everybody. And so I was, high school coach at Pea Ridge for 11 years. And then now I'm on year 3 at Bentonville West.
Awesome. One thing about your dad, elected to the Hall of Fame this year, and
Yes,
you got to
sir.
play a special part in letting him know how that he was part of that, right?
Yeah, that was awesome. AAA allowed me to be a part of that. Bobby Swafford called and said, "Hey man, just letting you know your dad made the Hall of Fame." He said, "I thought you might be want to be the one to tell him." And I was like, "If you don't mind, that would be awesome." And so we did something at the house. We went and got a cookie cake for him, and we put Hall of Fame class of 2026, and we had him and my mom come over to the house, and my daughter went and grabbed the cake and put it in front of him, and he opened it, and that's how he found out that he got inducted to the Hall of Fame. So it was a cool moment for my family. Very appreciative and grateful for AAA for even allowing us to do that. And then the banquet they put, the banquet they put on in Hot Springs a couple of weekends ago was just unbelievable. And so, AAA is led by a lot of really good people, and that banquet showed it to just how far they went above and beyond to give that experience for the Hall of Famers and their friends and family that all showed up.
That's awesome. That is awesome. And that's a moment you all will always have and cherish, and that is
Yes,
so
sir.
cool.
We'll talk about that forever.
Yeah. Well, how beneficial is it to have a resource like that you can turn to and ask questions?
Oh, I mean, but I talk to him all the time. It's like
Hmm.
another assistant coach, and so he does a really good job of just listening. He's not going to call and just give suggestions left and right. He knows I've got an unbelievable coaching staff with Coach Powell, Coach Rudolph, Coach Lovelace that are in this office with me, and but he also knows that I'm someone that is going to ask him questions when it's on my mind, and so I use him all the time. I call him a lot after practice and say, "Hey, this is going on. What do you think?" Or especially when you start prepping for the 6A West, being able to say, "Hey, they're doing this. What do you think?" Or, "Hey, how would you counter this defense or this offense?" It's just another resource that I've always taken full advantage of. Probably sometimes more than he would like, but he always answers the call and he always listens, and he's a great role model. He was a great coach, and just someone to be able to have that guy in your corner daily is very impactful.
No question. Now you mentioned your staff and your good staff. How important is it to be successful as a head coach to know you can delegate? Because I'm sure when you first start, you want to try to do everything, but it's just not possible, right?
No, it's not. No, it's not. I mean, you can, going back to my rowing the boat comment of the more people we have rowing the same direction, the faster we can get there. I'm a big believer in that. When you're young, my first year or two at junior high coach, I was doing seventh grade, doing junior high assistant varsity. And then, when you're young, 23, 24 as a head coach at a high school level, you think you need to be doing everything to prove yourself at times. And then as you get older, you start realizing no, you want more people around you that can challenge you as a head coach, can challenge your opinion on things, that can bring some new ideas to the table. And that's what we've got here. I've got three coaches that I get to work alongside that are brilliant basketball coaches. We have great conversations daily in the office that lead to the floor, and I'm getting better daily just being around them. And so you're very fortunate to have a really good staff. I was able to have that as well for a lot of years at Pea Ridge. I had a superintendent in Rick Neal that really believed in athletics and trying to provide the best possible experience for the coaches and the athletes at Pea Ridge. And that's what we have here at Bentonville as well. And so when you have that type of support, I've heard a lot of people say administration wins championships, and I do believe that there's a good truth to that when you know that you are supported, and we definitely have that here. And so, it shows with the staff we've got, and we're excited to be able to coach together daily.
No doubt. It makes a huge difference when your administration is supporting you, no question. So, when you do you watch basketball during the season or even during the non-season? Can you watch basketball from a non-coaching perspective and enjoy it, or do you even watch it at all? I mean, how does that work? Because it's interesting. Some coaches can, some coaches can't.
Yeah, I'm just a sports junkie. Like I love football, I love basketball, I love baseball. Like I can just watch all of it. Enough where like my wife said, "Hey, we can have two TVs in the living room just so you can watch it, and we can still like watch a show together as well, and still hang out." But no, I can turn it off. I'm all like when it comes to basketball, especially the college stuff.
Hmm.
You're always watching. If you see something good, you'll pause it, rewind it. Film it with your phone or write it down. Twitter. or X now, it's such a
Hmm.
good resource. It's changed the game, I think, for coaches as well, where you have all these people showing playbooks and showing defensive schemes. And that's made it a lot easier as well to be able to just kind of turn it off sometimes and watch, whether it's the Razorbacks or anybody. You don't have to constantly be looking at the schematics part of it because you know that you can go back and find that now pretty easy with a lot of these analytical tools as well, platforms. But no, I love sports. I love basketball. I'm always watching it, and I can turn it off though and just casually watch it as a fan.
Do you ever watch another sport and say, "Oh, there's something I can," and somehow incorporate it into use for your team?
Oh yeah, I mean, I love right now watching. You've got the Big Ten media day, you got the SEC media days with college football, and you get to listen to all these really good head coaches speak, and they get to talk about kind of what their pillars are. They talk about their culture. They talk about the X's and O's or what's made them who they are. And I mean, matter of fact, the head football coach at Indiana was on there talking this past week, and he said a couple really good things that we were talking about. Of hey, I really like this idea. We can use this here. And so, I think, I think if you can coach, like, I think you could, it doesn't always mean like, hey, he's just a good basketball coach. Sometimes you're just
Hmm.
a leader of people, right? And
Hmm.
so that can transform and translate into a lot of different sports. And so I think you can always learn no matter who it is.
Nice. What do you do to get away? Because I'm,
Uh,
or can do you have time like during the season where you can just take 30 minutes and just veg, or is that even possible?
No, I mean, I love spending time with my family. I've got two little ones. I've got a 7-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son that, right now keep me really occupied. So that's always fun. It's always, you want to talk about being able just to have a reset. It's when you get home after a practice or a game and then there they are waiting. That's what it's about. And so I love spending time with them and my family. And of course I like doing stuff like I like the working out. I think that's very beneficial in this profession as well, just for the mental side of it,
Hmm.
staying sharp and all of that. But no, I mean, I like stuff outdoors. I like to golf. I like to do a lot of that stuff, and I think it's healthy if you find time and give yourself time to get away from it, because this profession is becoming a 12 months of the year profession where you are investing in your young men daily, and it's not like you're getting a month or two off. Like it's daily, and it's what we do. We love it, but you
Hmm.
do have to find time to be able to get away from it and just have that kind of breathe vacation, just a little mental check.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is that a good thing that it's becoming a year-round thing, or is it okay as long as you have the barriers set up where you can, take a breath every now and then?
Yeah, I think that's sports are changing, right? Like when I was in
Hmm.
high school in the summer, whether it was from junior high, whatever, I was doing football in the morning and we go to basketball open gym after that, and then you're playing Legion baseball at night, right?
Yeah.
There's not a lot of that, especially as Northwest Arkansas keeps growing. It seems like kids are specializing a lot earlier. And I'm not, to each their own, whatever family
Hmm.
wants to do, I support that. I just think you have to have healthy boundaries of like, hey man, let's take this week off in the summer. Let your body heal, let your mind heal. Or, maybe it's taking those Fridays off early in the fall to make sure you're not wearing them out. And I think that's part of being a coach as well, is reading your team, reading their bodies, not just physically, but mentally, where are they? And it's part of it, but it is getting where it's a little bit more specialized, it seems.
Is that good or bad?
I think it just depends on who you're asking.
Hmm.
I think both sides of it. Like I'm a big fan of multi-sport athletes, always have been. I think when you grow up at Van Buren and you coach at Pea Ridge for a long time, you see how important that is. But I
Hmm.
think our job as head coaches is to not make them decide what they want to do. I think it's just to make sure that they know that we're okay and we support them in whatever they want to do. And so I think if
Stru-
we all have that mindset, then that's what it needs to be.
yeah, structure's important, especially for school age kids, because or even as
100%.
adults. Yeah. Um, okay, so we're entering the final 30 seconds of this. Do you read a lot during the year, during the off season? And if so, what do you read?
I'm Yeah, I'm not the biggest reader. Like I'm a guy that like I was talking earlier, like I learn a ton from the social media side. I try to use that. I do have some books, like Alan Stein and some of them that people have thrown at me and that I've read. I've read Coach K's book, of course, John Wooden's. And you just try to take away like what are their pillars.